Heyo, it's me, Harper Savage, and today I got the old Inktober sketchbook out because in this video that I colored these crystals, I asked you guys if you wanted a little tutorial on how I colored these crystals specifically with Sharpie markers. So that's what we're going to do today. Get your favorite sketchbook, get your Sharpie markers out, and let's get into it. So I'm going to be using Canson Mixed Media. I do recommend using a thicker type of paper with Sharpies because they bleed. But other than that, these techniques should work. Don't be surprised if they don't work as well on thinner paper types. Now this is the doodle I'm going to be working on today to show you my techniques. If you want to follow along with this exact doodle, then I suggest you joining my Discord server because one, that's where I posted this to share with everybody, and two, because we're a great community and we're very accepting. Don't worry, you'll fit in. So like I said earlier, I'm going to be using Sharpies. But before I get into that, I'm going to tell you exactly how to pick out what colors you want because that might be part of the struggle here. So first, I'm going to recommend that you swatch all your Sharpies. Get them all done and swatched out in front of you. I have a swatch book myself, so I have all my Sharpies already pre-swatched and I can reference it at any time. The next thing I would suggest is pulling up a color wheel, whether it's a physical one or a digital one, or what I'm about to say next. When I color in crystals, I typically use analogous colors, and what that means is colors that are on the same side of the color wheel and usually next to each other. I use that very loosely though, because sometimes I do skip over colors, and sometimes I wrap around back to colors. Like in this method, you'll see that I'm wrapping around back to red, because we're gonna go red, orange, red, basically. And over here, it doesn't look like they're very different in colors. Their caps are just wrong for some reason. But we're going to be doing teal to blue to purple, but they're not like those exact colors, if that makes sense. Here we have purple to like a reddish purple color. And then here we have a purple to bluish color. And we have a yellow to orange to pink color. So that's what I mean when I'm saying like three colors on the same side of the wheel. They're usually near each other. Another way to do it is by doing monochromatic, which just means it's the same color in different shades, basically. Like you have like a dark blue, a royal blue, and a light blue or sky blue. But I'm going to be showing you the analogous color method. So let me show you how to blend these colors, because this is probably going to be the actual hard part about Sharpies. So I'm going to talk now before I move on to the next step because of the way Sharpies work. Now, if you're familiar with alcohol-based markers, it is actually very similar because Sharpies are an alcohol-based marker, believe it or not. They just have something extra about them that make them dry quick. And that's probably where people are having the issue with Sharpies blending together. But basically, you're going to do the same methods that you would do with alcohol markers, but I suggest having all the Sharpie colors in your hand at once for whatever you're going to work on, because you're going to be uncapping and recapping really fast, because that is the only way to get them to blend nicely, is if you're doing it very quickly. So I'll try to show you what I mean. So first I just put a layer down of what I consider to be the lightest color, and then I'm gonna go in with the dark and the medium color. I'm gonna try to get them to blend together before I move back into the lightest color. And you just go back and forth a bunch of times until it blends, because it does pick up the pigment. Just like alcohol markers do, they pick up the pigment when the color is lighter going on to darker. Now I'm going to do the lighter one. Now these colors might not have as hard of a time blending together because they are closer to each other on the color wheel, unlike the peach and the red. You might have to go back over some spots because after you blend it, like leaves it a little bit darker. So to avoid streakiness, just go back over it and try to avoid the parts that are already too dark. And there you go. That is my red to orange to red again, like technically, but it is red, peach, and salmon colored. And for the sake of having a visual breakdown, I'll go ahead and do them so they are just solid because I'm not going to use these blocks otherwise. So you can see that there is like a big difference between each of the colors. So my Sharpie did pick up my Pigma Micron outline here. So just be aware of that if you are doing your own drawing or like printed out the image here. Now I'm going to show you guys these colors and how I'm going to break those down. Let's go ahead and block it in first so you guys can see what we're working with here. This is a periwinkle color, which is a type of purple. And then we have this blue-gray color, or as I like to call it, is slate. And then we have a teal color or a greenish blue color. And I'm just going to do the same thing I did before. Fill in the block with the lightest color. And then I blend it. You can start blending with the dark color or you can start blending with the medium color. It doesn't really matter what order you do them in because you're not going to fully overlap them. So in theory, they won't mix in the wrong spots. I just want to note like how these caps are not that different from each other, but their colors are very drastically different. So that's why it's important to swatch before you actually go in and color. And sometimes I do more of a flicking just to marry the colors a little bit better. Now, the blends are never going to be super perfect just because of the way Sharpie dries. It dries very, very fast, and that's just how it is, and that's how it was intended to be. But if you hold them in your hand like I was showing you and have the caps down in your palm, it's easy to switch between them, and don't like fully put the cap back on either, if I wasn't clear about that before. So that's how I blend the Sharpies. Let's go ahead and get into the crystal part. I'm going to show you kind of how I do it. I'll try to explain it the best that I can. It's kind of like more in like an intuitive thing, but you can probably get the idea of where I'm going with it. So first you're going to want to determine like your light source. I know that's like something people don't want to hear. What's your pet peeve is when people are like, oh, determine your light source or use a ruler. Because using a ruler is mine. I'm like, no, I don't want to use a ruler. You can either leave the space white or you can do another another analogous color. In this case, it would be like yellow or something. And over here, I think it'd be like green or like a light green. So I've decided the light source is going to be like on this side-ish. So I'm going to make sure that all of my lighter spots are over here with one like reflecting one in the opposite corner, if that makes sense. Now, you don't have to outline it like I just did if you're going to leave it white, but I just want to make sure that I remember to not color that, if that makes sense. Now, I'm also going to shade in what I'm going to be leaving just the darkest color. In this case, I'm just doing opposites because there's not that many sections. So the next factor is I try to make sure the darkest ends of each section are not together. So what I mean by that is I'm going to make the darkest point on this side at the bottom near where the reflective light is. And then on this side, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to have the darkest spot at the top. Now, there is some bleed because I had to try really hard to get these, to get the red and the orange to go together. So just be aware of that. The more you add, the more it's gonna like bleed outward. We'll have like, so that's why I recommend like thicker paper, because it'll suck it up instead of bleeding everywhere. And here is my ghosting and bleeding through the paper too. Now I'm gonna do something similar with this crystal, but I'll use these colors so you can see it work in both colors. Now there's more sections on this one, so it's gonna get a little bit more crazy. Now you can keep on doing opposites or do whatever you want, really. I tend to do like opposites for the most part though. And I'm going in with the darkest color to leave them simply that color. And I'm actually going to go in with the medium color in the center here. You can choose to leave the center the highlight too if you want. Again, it's all up to you what way you want to color things. Now I've run into this problem where I have both the dark ends facing in towards these two. So I'm just going to choose to do the opposite of where the darkest color is more present. So darkest color is up here for this one, so I'm going to come down here and make this the darker area. Because the darker area is down here, I'm going to be doing the darker area up here. This one did not bleed out of the lines as much because these colors actually blended together better than the red, orange to pink one. Now I meant to leave these two areas blank, but I got carried away. You could fix that with like a paint marker if you want to, or you could leave it. There's really no wrong way to color these, so don't feel intimidated if you mess up. Now for these two, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys putting these two colors together to make a more interesting looking crystal. So it's not just reflecting the same color. Now these are warm and cool tones. It'll probably work better if you have both warm tones for your color sets or both cool tones for your color sets, but I think it'll look interesting either way. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark out where I want to color the warm colors and where I'm gonna color the cool colors. So I decided to go with the upper part being the warm colors, lower part being the cool colors. And I'm gonna leave that one blank. Now I've just chosen to make the bottom points of the pink section darker. I think I want to do the opposite with the cool tones. I'm gonna make the tops of it darker. And I can't stress enough how it's important that you only do one little section at a time because of how quickly the Sharpie dries. I actually forgot to fully color in first, but it's okay. Because it's still blended nicely. I'll go ahead and color in this side just so you can see that there's not a huge difference. And it's okay if you don't do the first step of coloring it in all the way. So this is just an interesting way to kind of show that it's reflecting differently. Now for this one, we're going to apply more of this method to it where we're going to have like a totally dark one and then a totally white one. So I've got to plot out where those are going to be. Now because I made it so mix matchy shaped, I decided to have like two lighter spots. Now, if you want to add in a different color and not leave it like super white, I suggest just using colors from the same like kind of color family. For over here, I'm going to be using yellow, and for this one, I'm going to be using like a light green. So I'll just show you what it looks like if we were to color in the white area, but still have it kind of highlighted. And you can also use like a paint marker if you want to add further highlights, and sometimes I do. So like this one, and I kind of just follow along the cuts for the most part. And I don't have too much of like of a method as to deciding where I'm adding the shines. But I know it like really looks good on the darker areas, so I tend to lean towards putting them on the darker areas. And sometimes when the spaces meet and they're like the same color scheme, I think it's great to put highlights in there to make them more separate looking. So now that we've done that, we can go ahead and apply that to this little bunch I made down here. So here it is all done. I do really like it. I think the yellow though, the yellow and the red and like the teal kind of make it look a little circusy for some reason. I don't know. So for the base, I kind of just made it all flat colors so it looks like they're reflecting in a different way. Just so you can see the difference between like the larger crystals and like just the base of it. But yeah, that's how I color crystals. But that is going to be it from me. If you want to watch another tutorial-ish video, you can go ahead and tap the thumbnail here. If you want to catch up on anything you missed, you can go ahead and tap the thumbnail here. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to do all the cool YouTubey things of comment, liking, subscribing, and turning on that notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye!